All right, next up, before we get started on our next topic, I want to remind everybody that you guys can support the podcast. You can go to saltynerdvideo.com, and that will take you to our YouTube channel, and you can like and subscribe. We have our full-length podcast there, as well as having our podcast cut up into each segment, depending on topic. So if you'd like to go there, you can check out our videos, like, subscribe, comment, let us know what you're thinking, let us know what you want to hear about, and we'll take that into consideration in future shows. That's saltynerdvideo.com. All right, now I want to talk about the freaking troll job that Kadish did on me. Monster Squad. Kadish, why don't you tell us about this freaking movie?
So this movie is about a group of kids who are really into like the classic monsters.
Okay, first of all, Alex hates children. So please know that as we go through this together.
Kids in movies.
Did you never have like a club with your friends?
I did have a treehouse.
And you never like had it.
Did anybody come with you?
Yeah, I had some friends that came with me, checked out my treehouse.
Did they exist or were they imaginary?
I was a child once, and I did not like watching other children in movies.
I don't like people. I don't like other kids.
I'm called the salty nerd for a reason.
Did you just hang out with other adults when you were a child?
Yeah, more or less. I'm hanging out with people who are all older than me now. That has been a trend in my life from the beginning. So just keep that in mind. You call me an old soul all the time.
I do.
So
that's just because you're an old cranky bastard.
It's just a thing that people say to people when they're trying to be nice.
Anyway, Monster Squad.
Yeah, so it's about a young group of kind of monster fanatics. They're like a group of like these nerdy outcast kids from high school or from grade school that are obsessed with like monsters. And it just so happens that they live in this small town that possesses this amulet that the real Dracula wants in order to turn the world evil. And so Dracula resurrects a bunch of like kind of iconic monsters like Frankenstein, the Mummy.
It's all the Universal monsters.
The creature from the Black Lagoon. Yeah. Well, because of copyright issues, they can't technically be those monsters, but they were close enough. So Dracula comes to this small town with his army of monsters to try to get this amulet, and the kids are the only ones who know how to stop him, so they have to band together in order to fight off the monsters and save the world. And it's basically like Goonies with monsters instead of pirates, and it is wonderful.
It's awful.
It is a classic of the 80s.
So bad.
Terrible.
So bad.
I just like how when we were watching, or at least when Alex was watching this, we have this little Twitter DM group. And Alex is like, Kadish, what is this movie?
It's like, Kadish, what the did you do?
He was like, Dear Kadish, I found a movie that I hate more than Goonies.
I did say that.
Absolutely, word for word what he said.
Kadish found the movie that I hate more than the Goonies. This movie was worse than the Goonies for me. Like, okay, I'll just talk about this movie for a minute. But,
just get in there, dive deep.
The first like 5-minute opening scene where there's like Van Helsing and all the monsters. Like that was the best.
Blew
part.
it.
That was the best part of the movie.
They blew it.
It's the best part of the movie.
It's up to these children.
There's this whole title crawl at the beginning of the movie where they talk about how Van Helsing like led an assault against Dracula to try to defeat the forces of evil, and then the last line of the title crawl is just they blew it, and then they show you them blowing.
Yeah. What was the point of the crawl if they're going to show us the part of the?
Because it's awesome.
Just to give you the visual, like this is how they blew it.
Also, did anyone catch that what happened in the beginning, how they like quote unquote blew it, was exactly what they did in the end of the movie?
Yeah, because this movie sucks.
It's exactly the same ritual.
Well, the thing is that they succeeded in creating the portal, but they didn't kill Dracula. That's why they blew it.
Oh, okay.
Because Van Helsing got sucked into the limbo portal, and Dracula was able to escape. And then Van Helsing's assistants took the amulet and immigrated to America, and that's where they hid it to keep it away from Dracula. And that's like the whole premise of the story. Is that?
Thank you for clarifying that, Kadish, because the movie did not make it clear.
Yeah.
Was that the same portal that showed up in the end of Evil Dead?
Close.
I think it was.
Fucking mashup. Okay. Can we talk about the freaking?
Okay, Alex has his hand over his face right now as he's talking about this movie.
Pained.
This movie is so bad. Like they didn't even get the monsters right.
Well, they couldn't.
They're so campy. and terrible. No, I was watching this movie and I'm like, okay, well, that opening scene, I thought was actually pretty fun. I was like, oh, Van Helsing, you know, there's monsters, there's this demon portal, cool, all right, I'm in. And then kids, and I was like, God damn it. So I'm watching this, and I think I wanted to say one thing I did like about this: the relationship that the father had with his son. Where he's like, Dad, I want to go to the movies.
Yeah.
Like, we're going to go tomorrow. And the dad came home after work or something, and they sat on the roof together and ate a burger and watched the movie. I was like, man, that's a good dad. Like, I was like, all right, cool, I dig it.
Yeah. And I liked that interaction in the bedroom, too, where he was like, basically like, kid, you're a pain in the ass, but I love you.
Yeah.
And he was like, Dad, I'm a pain in the ass, but I love you, too.
The father-son thing, I really did appreciate it. It was cool, but the rest of the movie was trash. One of the things that I hated the most and I thought was just horribly done, and I'm trying to remember it so that I can describe it good enough, because when I was watching it, I was like, oh my God, I can just imagine being on set, right? So they have, when they finally wake up all the monsters, and Dracula finds Frankenstein, and he's still in the coffin, and he's like, wake up, my friend, and he holds the lightning rod in the air. I just picture it. You got the camera guy on the crane dolly, and they're like, okay, we're gonna crane out, and I want you guys just to kind of like celebrate that Frankenstein's awake, and all the monsters just kind of like do this like random little jig, and they kind of just they just kind of like, yes, our friend is back, and they just kind of like dance back and forth a little bit while Dracula's there, like
I
holding
felt
his
like
spear.
the Wolfman was particularly like gyratey through the whole movie, like as Dracula's trying to dig through this wall, like Wolfman is just like humping the air as he's like taking a hammer to this wall trying to break through.
Oh, okay. And this will be it. After this, I'll let you guys talk about it. But the other thing that makes, and this is, I think, a trope with just kids' movies in general, and why I hate movies with kids in them, is because everybody else has to be so incompetent to make the kids look smarter that it just irritates the shit out of me. These monsters, when they have these kids cornered at the end of the movie, and they're like about to kill the kid, right? They take out all the cops are dead, right? The monsters come and just wipe out the whole police force, but these kids stay alive, because the one in particular that was the worst was the Swamp Thing, and it was chasing the fat kid with the shotgun.
His name was Horace.
This movie.
As the fat kid, I was totally offended at this fat kid.
Dude, this movie was vulgar as like, they were talking like dropping some crazy 80s bad words that we can't say
Very
anymore.
un-PC words.
Very un-PC words.
Oh yeah, there was like F words and stuff, right?
The one kid blackmails his sister with a nude photo that they took of her.
So creepy.
It's like
Anyway.
when the older brother from younger years was accosting the fat kid at the beginning of the movie. That's what we're talking about, right? It's like, wow, that's a mouth on that kid.
For like it's like aimed at.
But you know
movie.
what? Back in the 80s, nobody would have blinked an eye.
Anything goes.
Nowadays, with everybody,
I was like that.
hyper offended at every little word
They
that
need a
comes out of their
disclaimer
mouth.
at the beginning of the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It says outdated terminology.
whoa.
So I know Kadish is aware of this, but are either of you aware that there is actually a documentary about this film? It's called Wolfman's Got Nards.
I might have to actually watch it.
And it is impossible to find. We tried to find it, and we can't find it.
They defeated the Wolfmen by kicking him in the nuts. Oh my God. Okay. Anyway, so before we move on to that scene where the Swamp Thing was chasing the kid, and it was literally just walking extremely slowly.
Oh, welcome to every zombie movie.
Yeah,
Chill
it's
out.
not a zombie. It's the Swamp Thing.
Still,
And
he's not
chasing-
used to being
It's
on
not
land.
Swamp Thing either. It's the creature from the Black Lagoon.
Whatever. It's the
But,
Get it
but
right.
in this movie, it was the Gill Man.
the water monster guy. Abe from what's that? movie?
Hellboy.
I was just like, I'm like, how can in any way can this be considered good?
It actually reminded me more of the creatures from Aquaman that live down in the pit or whatever.
Oh yeah.
Kind of reminded me of the Oscar-winning movie, The Shape of Water.
I haven't seen.
Okay, I'm done. Kadish,
He's got his hand over his face again. He can't take it.
Why did you pick it? Did you pick this movie
He
just to
hates
troll
children.
me? Did you just troll me with this movie? Is that why you picked it?
No.
You legitimately like this movie?
We love this movie.
This is a wonderful film.
We probably watch this movie once or twice a year.
You actually think it's good?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's actually it's a cult classic from the 80s.
Yeah.
This movie was co-written by Shane Black, and in the year that this movie came out, Shane Black had just sold his script for Lethal Weapon, and he was acting in The Predator, and so like this was like kind of the trifecta of Shane Blackness. And
Tell him, babe.
His Predator movie sucked, by the way.
well, I'm talking about the '87 Predator. So
The newest one that Shane Black directed sucked.
Oh,
yeah,
it's terrible.
it was terrible. He also wrote that one too, oddly enough. But like this was back when Shane Black was writing good movies, like the guy who co-wrote and directed this, his name's Fred Decker, and he's been Shane Black's longtime collaborator, so he's had like a hand in a lot of Shane Black's movies. And it's kind of just it's a fun movie. Like their whole premise was they wanted to kind of take the little rascals and pit them against the Universal monsters. And they originally pitched the idea to Universal, and Universal turned them down. And so in order to use the monsters for the script, they had to change them by up to, I think it was 15 or 20%. So like they couldn't make them look just like the monsters from the Universal films. So like the Frankenstein, for instance, instead of having bolts in his neck, they had them in his like forehead, his temples.
Yeah. But these monsters are all like public domain, right?
Well, the characters are, but
Yeah.
like the look of them had to be different from the because originally the idea was to take the classic Universal monsters, and have them, in the movie.
Dracula looked like he picked up his outfit at Party City. It's just.
Well, they all kind of did, to be honest.
Actually, funny enough, this is like one of the more iconic Dracula looks from this movie because the actor just nailed it. Originally, Liam Neeson was going to play that role.
Are you serious?
Yeah. And this was before Liam Neeson was Liam Neeson.
Thank God he didn't. Never would have heard of him after that.
But the guy who got the role kind of just nailed it, so they went with him instead.
Nailed it?
Yeah.
Who is it?
His name is...
It doesn't
I
matter.
want to say it's Duncan.
It doesn't matter what his name is.
Duncan Rager.
Yeah, something.
Okay.
But the guy who did all the creature effects for this movie was Stan Winston. Like all these, like the
Get the out of here.
No, yeah, this was a Stan Winston joint.
Well,
he
got to make some.
He did
got to work.
Yeah, he did the Wolfman, the Mummy, he did all the creature effects in this movie, and I don't know, like this movie to me, like when I was a kid and I watched this movie, like I wanted to be in the Monster Squad. I wanted to go out and fight monsters. Yeah. And it's one of those things where I think if you grew up in the 80s, you have like a special place for this movie in your heart because it was initially a box office failure due to the fact that like it was too scary for its audience and it was too dumb for the adults.
Alex, I swear to God, quit scrunching your face up and huffing under your breath about this movie.
I'm trying not to cut him off.
To be honest, though, there's other movies out there that are Witches of Eastwick is like a kid's horror movie done well.
No.
Yeah. My kids love that movie. And this is kind of like the same era, right? I mean, within probably 5 or 6 years of each other. I don't know.
Witches of Eastwick was very
No.
adult.
I'm not talking. I'm talking about Hocus Pocus. I'm sorry. Yeah, Hocus Pocus, not Witches of Eastwick. But
Yeah, I was gonna say that's.
but
Yeah. Say, what did you have your children watch?
yeah, I'm still waking up. But I can tell you straight up, my kids would hate this movie, but they love Hocus Pocus.
Well,
and to me in my head, it's kind of the same kind of vibe to me. But
Well, what's funny is like when I was growing up, so I was too young to see this movie in the theater. So I wasn't able to go and see it in the theater. But this movie found its audience on home video, and so like I saw this movie on TV and in home video, and like being a kid, it was scary. I think that this movie when I first saw it initially gave me nightmares of just like the shadow of like the Wolfman coming back together after he gets blown up and stuff like that. Like
Mommy came in my room.
Yeah. Oddly enough, remember that kid who said like the mummy's in his room? That's David Faustino from Married with Children, as like a little boy.
that's kind of fun.
That's a deep cut.
Yeah.
That's a deep cut.
But like I just feel like there's so many elements in this movie. Like as I watch it as an adult, like I can appreciate more. A lot of the humor works on an adult level. It's funny because like all the kids in this movie, like you have kids who are like smoking and like you know taking like spying on women as they're changing clothes and taking pictures of them and using foul language.
I did all those things when I was 14.
Well, yeah, but like in the 80s, there were no movies that showed kids like that. And this was kind of like one of those movies where like they actually made an effort to show the kids as kids were back then. And it was kind of, I just thought it was interesting. And it made it stand out and made it edgy. Like looking at it now in this day and age, it's not quite as edgy as it was when it first came out. But like I can appreciate the evolution of this movie. And I don't know, like I just think it's a good movie. Like it's not high art by any means, but it's entertaining and it's a great concept. And there is a community of people out there who just like are rabid about this movie. As you know, Jude was telling us about this documentary that the actors of the movie actually made. They had no idea like how big of a fan base this movie had until I think about 2006.
Yeah.
Where Ain't It Cool News held like this special screening at the Alamo Drafthouse, and they were able to get all the cast and the director and writers to come and attend it. And it sold out. There were lines around the block, and they started doing like more screenings of this movie, and more people were flying in from all over the world to come and watch this with like the cast.
I find that amazing.
And they started making a documentary on it, and they just found out that there's this huge community of monster squatters out there who just grew up on this movie and are fanatical about it.
Wow.
Just like I can see why that people would kind of do that, but I don't know, those weird little fringe fandoms. I don't know. In my head, I'm having a hard time seeing this movie pick up the cult following that you're describing there. You know, if it's a movie like, I could see it if it was like Lost Boys or something like that,
which came out the same year.
Yeah, which is a much better movie. There's a weird little cult fan following for the saxophone player from that movie.
Yes.
You know, I know who that. I forgot this movie existed. Kadish, I did. I didn't even remember it was out there, and I don't think I ever even bothered to watch it back in the 80s because, you know, there was other better kid movies back then, like the Goonies, that were, you know, actually fun. You know, this movie to me, it was hard to get through. It really was. It was really hard to get through. It was just
like when we were watching it, Jude was actually quoting lines before they happened.
Oh yeah.
And like I'm a fan of this movie, but even I can't do that.
Wow. It's like the creature effects were terrible. The Wolfman, I just laughed at him because it's like, oh, we're gonna watch him change into the Wolfman in the telephone booth. It's like, oh, let's just have 3 little quick cut frames of different stages of his makeup, you know, something a high school film critic could do with their phone. You know, it was harder back then, I guess, but I don't know. Just this movie did nothing for me, but kind of annoy me.
I like how the little kid wrote in crayon a letter to the army.
Dear Army guys.
Yeah, dear Army guys, please come. Monsters are attacking.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And then at the end of the movie, the army actually shows up, and he delivered it via a dog. Like he just gave it to his dog to deliver. And the army guys actually show up, and they're like, "Okay, son, where's the emergency?"
Yeah.
And they're like,
Where's
"We took care of it."
Eugene?
Yeah, we took care of it.
Who are you? We're the Monster Squad.
Yeah.
They're all proud of each other.
Cut to music.
All right, Jude. Why are you such a fan of this movie?
Again.
You're quoting it? Like you've seen it that many times?
Yeah, I can probably quote most of this movie start to finish.
Wow. What did talk to me about this movie? Make me. You're not going to be able to.
I'm not going to do it. I feel like the pod is officially split down the center.
It absolutely is. Yeah. There's a wall in the middle of this table.
There's pro Monster Squad versus anti Monster Squad. I love this movie. And I mean, you guys know I love campy horror movies. I've never found this movie scary. So I disagree with that point that it was like too scary. But I just have always found
too
it
scary for young kids.
Yeah, okay.
Like our
No,
kids,
but I don't think so.
our 6-year-old wouldn't be able to watch.
I'd let my
Okay.
6-year-old daughter or grandkid watch this, no problem.
Yeah, I don't know. My kid watches Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
So I can't imagine that this would be any worse than that.
Well, monsters are different than dinosaurs.
Yeah.
Like you literally have a wolf man who gets blown up and his severed body parts, meld back together. You have people getting shot. You have people getting staked through the chest.
What is the rating of this film? Is it PG-13?
That didn't exist back then. I don't.
Yeah, I don't think.
No, wait. PG-13. PG-13 was after Indy 2, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Temple of
After
Doom gave
Raiders.
the PG-13, which
It was PG-13.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I love this movie. I think it's, again, awesomely bad and terrible in the way that I love. It's campy and I love it.
that's it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Monsters, vampires, check.
What's your favorite part?
Come back to me. Let me think about
Okay.
it because I love the movie start to finish.
Okay.
I think the scariest monster to me was
I got it.
Oh.
Sorry, go ahead.
Dracula's wives.
Oh my God, the slow walking
The slow
chicks
walker
in white
chicks.
dresses.
Yeah, at least they were kind of looking scary looking. You know, it's just like
Don't get me started
My
on
favorite part, which Kadish has heard me quote this like time and time again. You guys, I saw a scary German guy.
Scary German guy.
I love the little sister.
Oh, the little sister. God. When she's like, this is my friend Frankenstein.
Yeah.
And he's like, hello.
And it was very E.T. when Drew Barrymore was like, here's my friend. He's an alien. I'm going to dress him up. And
See-
Phoebe was like, he's okay, you guys. He's friends with us.
When Dracula calls the little 4-year-old a bitch, I was like, damn. Then Frankenstein comes in. It's like, no.
She's like, you have to let me in the club because mom said so. Else it's prescription. He's like, that's discrimination.
see, that was my little brother. My little brother is like 4 years younger than me, so he was always trying to like tag along with me and my.
I
buddies
was
were
the
out
little
doing that stuff.
sister.
Yeah, you're
Yeah, and-
probably a real pain in the ass.
Yeah, I still am.
Well, it's funny because the guy who played Frankenstein, Tom Noonan, who you'd recognize him. He was in Manhunter.
12
He was
Monkeys.
the killer in Manhunter. He's been in tons of stuff.
Yeah.
Like he was method acting while he was doing this movie. So he was always in character as Frankenstein. And so like all the kids, like he wouldn't interact with any of the kids because like, he was in character and the kids were like when the actors met him at the reunion in 2006, it was the first time any of them had ever actually interacted with him as
Tom Noonan. Yeah.
So like, it was just,
Plus, he was on set hours before them getting ready to be Frankenstein because of like the child labor laws. The children could only be on set for so many hours, and he was there getting makeup for like 8 hours before the kids even arrived. So he was like fully in character by the time the kids arrived.
I think it was more like 4 hours.
Whatever.
But that scene where Dracula picks up the little girl, and calls her a bitch and stuff. It was funny because I mean, like the actress at the time, she was a little girl, and the Dracula makeup was scary to her, so they kept Dracula away from her for as long as they could. And then like he had these red contact lenses and stuff that were kind of meant to freak her out. So like when they're lifting her up on the little platform where it looks like he's lifting her up by the face, her reaction, like her scream, was like a genuine like thing of fear because
she was not acting.
Because like he like opened his eyes and like hissed at her with like his pointy teeth, and she was like, oh my god.
Yeah.
And
there's
like,
an interview with her and she's like, he hissed at me. Like as an adult, she's still like, he hissed at me.
Traumatizing kids since 1987. Monster Squad.
Yeah, but I mean like
Direct to DVD.
like this was a movie that was very much kind of like the young boy's fantasy of like having like a club of your friends and you fight monsters, and there's like I had the biggest crush on that big sister growing up.
Everybody did. This babe is a major.
Yeah, she was major. And I actually think this was the first time I actually saw a girl in her bra in a movie.
Well, what about Back to the Future?
I don't know.
Oh, that was a 1950s bra. That doesn't count.
Oh, okay.
Well, I mean, like this was like like a hot teenage girl, and like they're like staring.
She's
at
kind
her
of
through the
slutty
window.
because turns out she wasn't a virgin.
Yeah, exactly. Steve doesn't count.
Steve doesn't count. What? That was legit. I did chuckle at that part.
It's girl logic. A lot of girls think that way.
I have
he
said
doesn't
that.
He doesn't count.
That guy didn't count.
The laws of the occult. That's not how that works.
It was just butt stuff. Doesn't count.
Oh my God.
And I love like all the nicknames for characters, like creepy German guy or scary German guy,
Scary German guy.
and fat kid. Like poor Horace. Like nobody knows his name. They just call him Fat Kid.
Fat Kid.
Even his friends, they're like, "Hey,
Oh
Fat Kid."
man, fat kid farted.
God, this movie's awful. All right.
Fat kid.
Final thoughts.
Totally.
His name is Horace.
His name is Horace. Final thoughts.
His name is Horace.
That's a T-shirt right there.
Oh, good Lord.
We should
man.
do a T-shirt with the three of us or the four of us doing like Charlie's Angels poses, but it says his name is Horace.
I've got my guns I can bring over. Whatever. Anyway, final thoughts on this movie. I was kind of like, God damn
Love it.
No.
I'll watch it again right now.
I legit watched it and I was like, I would rather watch The Goonies. As much as I hate that movie, I think it's more tolerable than this one.
Good
this
enough
so bad.
for you.
That's all I have to say. I don't want to trash it because you obviously love it to death. So I don't want to
Well, you
trash
know
it
what's
too
interesting?
much,
I didn't even think about this until Jude started singing. Is that this movie, like the score for this movie, actually makes it feel a lot more like timeless because they stayed away from a lot of the 80s synth and pop songs that were kind of popular at the time. They went with a more classical
that
musical
classic
score.
rap at the end.
Well, there was that, but I mean, like
We're the Monster Squad.
yeah, throughout the movie though, it's like a very standard orchestral soundtrack.
Vader, what's your final thoughts on this movie?
Vader wants to kill himself.
He's checked out. He's just surfing Twitter right now.
He's playing games on his phone.
Yeah. It's just another 1-star crap fest as far as I'm concerned. I'm really like wondering in my brain why we do a podcast with these guys. No, I'm joking.
They're just going to keep picking this.
I know.
Terrible
It's like, that's
80s
it. You're
movies.
banned. You're banned for picking.
Part of the fun of this podcast is getting to torture you guys.
Yeah.
Well, I did.
I'm crying.
One of my missions of this podcast was to watch movies I'd never
Yeah,
seen before
me
and
too.
talk about them.
Me
So
too.
here we are talking about fucking Monster Squad.
1-star crap fest. So we're gonna
Hashtag
we're
1-star crap fest.
we're gonna have to put a collection of
Can somebody please
Matt
give
and
us
Jude's
a
favorite
review?
movies going forward. Yeah.
We should.
Somebody please give us a review and tag it 1-star crap fest.
You'll get a T-shirt. I'll give you a T-shirt for that one. Give us a 1-star review. 1-star crap fest.
No, give us a 5-star review, but say 1-star crap fest. Don't give us a 1-star review.
All right.
No, it just felt like a bad Goonies knockoff with
Yeah, it did.
monsters that they probably shouldn't have been allowed to touch.
Nailed it.
Yeah,
That's what makes it great.
that makes it bad. It's a bad movie.
Bad movie. Shame on you.
No boobs.
All right, Kadish, final thoughts on this movie. Why did you okay, I asked you this once. I'm going to ask you again.
Do you really mean it that you like it? I'm giving you a chance to change your answer.
Trolled.
Did you pick this movie because you legitimately love it, or did you pick it just to troll me?
Well, I had no idea you'd respond this way to this movie.
Really?
The whole the theme for this week's podcast was monsters and robots, and to me, when I think of monsters, I think of like the classic Universal monsters, and this was just like a fun movie that I remember very fondly. And the nostalgia factor for this movie is a big thing for me as well because I grew up on it and I loved it growing up. So, like Jude said, like we watch this movie like maybe once a year, or something like that, and I just thought it'd be a fun movie to talk about because, like, Shane Black's involvement, the whole cult following that this movie has accumulated over the course of decades. The classic monsters, the Stan Winston makeup, the kid actors. Like I genuinely love this movie, so I just thought it'd be fun to talk about it since it was kind of keeping in the theme of monsters and robots.
All right.
You keep being you, man. It's totally cool.
You do your thing, Kadish. That's what you're good at.
Hey, this was better than Godzilla.